Welcome back to Anxiety Master. This is the third video in our short series about how to break the chains of addiction. My name is Dominic Decker, a teacher and registered therapist, and your support behind Anxiety Master, here to help you develop the practical skills you need for a strong and stable life. If you've been following along, you'll have met Jay, a young man from London who, after many lost years of costly, draining porn addiction, realised he needed help to reclaim control of his experience and life potential. If you haven't watched the previous two videos, make sure you start there for all of what we cover for this to make sense, because this video covers the critical role of the expectation pathway and how this powerful brain mechanism keeps people bound to the chains of addiction. Then we'll cover the 3 essential steps you need to take to free yourself from destructive behaviour. For more on this, I can also recommend the excellent book Freedom from Addiction, link in the description. So, all addictive behaviours work through the same pathway in the brain, the expectation pathway. If you've ever tried to stop a compulsive habit, then you'll know that initial abstinence is manageable. Yet the craving grows over time, often until you can't say no. Now, what happens in the brain is this. There is a structure in the brain called the amygdala, whose job it is to notice when anything unusual is happening and raise the alarm to potential danger. So on this occasion, it notices that you still need to have your usual fix. To remedy this, a sequence of chemical events floods your brain with arousing emotional memories of how wonderful it was the last time you did it. These memories make your craving powerful and often overwhelming instead of the mild physiological discomfort you experienced in the pre-addiction phase. Because now, the expectation of pleasure is running rampant and quite naturally, you succumb to fulfill it. But such memories are deceptive because, as you know, when you feel deprived of something you want, you exaggerate the joys of it. So you remember the thrill of sinking into the hit while you forget or minimise the self-loathing and regret that came later. In other words, you reject reality and surrender to fantasy. After discussing with Jay how addiction had trapped and swindled him, we constructed a step-by-step plan for him to stop watching porn. The following 3 steps underpin the strategy for moving forwards. Step 1. You must knock out the promises of addiction that fuel your beliefs. Addiction is deceptive. It promises a means to deal with distressing feelings, yet works to conceal the inherent distress of being chained to compulsive activity. Addiction promises a form of protection, perhaps from uncomfortable feelings, but then becomes the threat itself. For Jay, we had to interrogate what he believed his habit did for him and what it actually did. In his case, internet porn represented a non-judgmental sanctuary. And primarily, the screen was a place to retreat when he felt lonely, sad, or inadequate. In addition, his cyber hideout offered a place to celebrate when something went well. In short, Jay's habit had dialed itself in as the default response for distressing or any other emotionally arousing experience. Well, consequently, his brain had built up a storehouse of 1,000 memories high that would urge him to either self-medicate or reward himself. To combat these deceptive recollections, he had to challenge his positive associations and replace them with reality, because in truth, Jay's addiction had created a world of shame, remorse, and regret. And the allure of easy access to an uninhibited world of emotional arousal left him feeling grubby, humiliated, and chained to behaviour that robbed him of pride and emotional stability. He felt on constant edge, and with so many shameful memories, his confidence and the potential for romantic relationships had melted away. Whether nervously anticipating the next time he'd succumb to a marathon online fantasy, or drowning in the aftermath of guilt and helplessness, addiction was robbing him of dignity and well-being. Well, this stark reality was a turning point for Jay. Now from here, I guided Jay through several hypnotic sessions to utilise his strengths and focus on reclaiming freedom. Assisted by deep calm and relaxation, we worked to steer his awareness and recovery towards a new and emboldened understanding of his habit. So now, instead of feeling deprived if he couldn't access porn, the absence of his draining habit opened a pathway back to self-regard and ultimately the gift of freedom. Now he would stamp on the compulsion down with a genuine choice. No lost confidence, no lost time, No more walking in his own shadow anymore. Well, this was promising. Jay was rewiring his emotional relationship with addiction. I explained to Jay that failing to attend to everyday life's physical and emotional swings and roundabouts would miss a critical component of his chance for recovery. In other words, we had to figure out practical daily adjustments to fuel this newfound motive for change. Well, this brings us to the second essential step. Step 2, you have to renovate your lifestyle for a balanced and healthy interaction with life. As we've covered, addiction promises to fill the emptiness. Whether replacing a problem with comfort or briefly softening the edges of other distress, compulsive habits feel like getting your needs met while preventing you from addressing the genuine needs you have. Jay had become reclusive over time. His friendship circle had shrunk and his romantic prospects appeared next to none. And due to his shyness, a successful day at work meant living off radar and avoiding attention from colleagues or managers. Yet this was no success. Jay was undernourished, surviving on an emotionally poor diet. He received little attention, he lacked community, and didn't aspire to create much. It was lonely. Yet nursing a habit that he hoped would remove this distress was the very behaviour that kept him trapped. To address these circumstances, Jay started to focus on creating modest and practical ways to better meet his emotional needs. He joined a climbing club and resolved to invite someone from his new circle of friends to his house each week. He started venturing out more and taking an interest in other people. And with active efforts towards modest expansion, it would only be a matter of time before his romantic prospects improved. Yet to give Jay's progress a chance, he needed step 3, and this is how to anticipate risk situations. And by now, Jay was on a good path. He had a candid overview of addiction's deception, was replacing its promises with simple steps to feel connected to life, and critically had transitioned from feeling deprived to feeling a clear purpose and taking bold steps towards social rehabilitation. Yet always, addiction is clever, it's malevolent, and consistently game for an argument. It would take some time for Jay to properly rewire his brain. Until then, he would need to remain vigilant. So next to porn as a numbing antidote to social shyness, work stress was a consistent trigger for indulging his habit. So I asked him to know all the people, places, and things that might trigger temptation. For instance, he might discuss porn with someone in passing or capitulate when his surroundings were messy and chaotic, little careless dominoes that would set off a trail and nudge his attention back to the screen. Identifying the various satellite triggers in Jay's emotional orbit helped enable us to construct practical measures to anticipate risk and respond with well-prepared off-ramps before a cascade of behaviour could evolve. And here, again, I utilised hypnotic induction with Jay to rehearse constructive behaviour for when these moments could occur. If you'd like to access an audio sample of how this works, check the link below. For anyone suffering from addiction, it's critical that they recognise their emotional triggers. Dismantling the uninhibited patterns that drive your behaviour is essential to overcoming addiction. So all kinds of stimuli, people, places and things, can act as triggers and send you hurtling back to habits you'd roundly condemned only a short time before. Logic won't cure compulsive habits because addiction snatches away your rational mind at the moment of hijack. To instigate behavioural change, you need a robust and conscious emotional transition combined with risk response strategies and practical steps towards a life of better attending to emotional needs. Plotting the path to sustainable recovery requires courage, honesty, and determination on a sufferer's part, and in best case circumstances, a combination of personalised and well-formulated interventions from a professional. It's a craft to fit the pieces of permanent recovery together, yet healing is totally possible. So throughout our work, I observed Jay transition from a timid and cautious young man to a receptive and curious adult. He was moving beyond a habit that had kept him bound to chains of inadequacy. So now, with broader shoulders and expanding horizons in front of him, he could assess his life with greater fortitude. Instead of reacting to pain, he was creating fulfillment, real pleasure. It took Jay a handful of times before he got to where he wanted to be, and we had to tinker with his goal to make it work for him. But given the potential for relapse, we also had to devise a reliable plan to pick himself back up again. Now, to find out how we put this together, join me in the next video. I hope to see you there.